Everyone, welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of Thursday, August 14th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire. Here.
In our packets, we have the minutes from the July 10th meeting. Are there any changes, corrections, or motions?
I move that the minutes be approved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay. We have no matters for special privilege, which will move us right into public hearings. And first is the consideration of a grant of an easement to Dominion Energy for electrical lines to service the new police station. Ms. Shelton.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, Dominion needs an easement in the public works yard, which is shown on the map, to serve the new police station and the EV chargers that will be part of the police station. Begins on the corner of Armistead and Lafayette, and is an 8-foot easement that wraps around behind the public works yard to the existing transformers. In order to do that, we have to grant an easement for Dominion to install those lines. Attached to your agenda is a right-of-way agreement for that easement for a period of 40 years with their standard service requirements as part of the easement.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Shelton?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come forward, speak to this matter. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to council. It seems pretty straightforward. Obviously, we need to get power to the station. Hate to run it on generators the whole time, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no comments.
Same with me.
Would you like to make a motion?
I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a right-of-way agreement with Dominion Energy to install additional service lines to serve the new police station.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
All right. Takes us now to reports, and first we have the monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron.
Good afternoon, and I'll start out by saying this is going to be a quick report because a lot of the revenues I'm going to talk about today really roll back into the previous fiscal year. The first being our sales tax, which has a 2-month delay. So in July, we received information for May activity. And as you can see, we're currently at 90% of budget. You can see how that compares with the prior year. We have one more month to collect, so actually maybe as early as tomorrow I might know what the June activity was. But looking at the trend, I'm hopeful that we'll see that come in at about 99% of budget, just slightly under budget. And then on our next slide, we're showing our room tax or lodging tax. And we are about 3% increase compared to last year. That equates to about $113,000, and we're at 102% of our budget. With meals tax, we are showing about a 4.6% increase compared to last year. That's about $408,000, and we're also at 102% of budget for that item. And then looking at our $2 lodging tax, we are about 3%, showing a 3.6% increase compared to last year. That equates to about $34,000, and we're at 105% of budget. And then with our historic sales tax, we are almost level right now with where we were last year, about a $15,000 decrease, and we're at 91% of budget, and I would hope that we come in and make budget on that. And so that concludes my formal remarks for now. I'm happy to answer any questions, but even our revenue that we have collected thus far for utilities relates back to last year's accrued back.
Well, it looks like we're in good standing compared to budget.
We are.
So that's good news, and hopefully, as you say, July or June will come in a little better than it did the previous year, so that we'll
Right.
make that budget. So,
Right. So,
No questions. Thank you, Ms. Tam.
No questions for me?
No questions, thank you.
all right, so I understand you got the monthly departmental operating reports.
I do, and we'll roll right into that.
Okay.
And so just a cover slide here to give you an idea of what we're talking about. I want to briefly speak to the Government Accounting Standard Boards and some of the pronouncements or statements that we have implemented, will be implementing, and can look forward to the future, as well as how, just a brief audit update. I also talk about the utility billing changes, digital parking, collection of taxes, process improvements and systems efficiency, and then wind up with the budget process and awards. And so the Government Accounting Standard Boards are the ones that set the standards for how we account and report our financial operatings. I'll refer to them as GASB. And so in FY22, we implemented GASB 87, which had us treat certain long-term leases as a financing arrangement. In 23, we implemented GASB 96, which was similar to 87, but it dealt with subscription-based IT arrangements. Currently, we're working on closing out the year and the audit. We're confident that our annual comprehensive financial report will be presented to council in December. And we will also be implementing this year GASB 101. And that GASB updates the recognition and measurement guidance for compensated absences. And primarily, you can think of those as vacation and sick leave. Although this GASB encompasses slightly more than that, those are the primary ones that we'll be taking a review of and looking at how we measure those, particularly in recording the liability associated with those leaves. We also have GASB 102, which is certain risk disclosures, and it requires governments to disclose risks from certain concentrations and constraints that limit the ability to acquire resources or control spending. And so you can think of a concentration risk as a lack of diversity related to resources, so employees, industries, and even vendors for the products and services that we need to provide service to our residents. Whereas a constraint is a limitation placed on the government by an external party or the highest level of government making decision ability. So with that, you think of things such as the ability to incur debt, such as the state's 10% limit on real estate assessed valuation, or mandatory spending. And the disclosures may be required if the impact is substantial and has already occurred, is beginning to occur, or is more likely than not to occur within 12 months from the date the financial statements are issued. That's what we've got going on now. Looking to the future, what's on the horizon would be GASB 103, and what that's going to do is look at financial reporting model improvements, and it's going to focus on changes to the management discussion and analysis in the annual comprehensive financial report, as well as changes in the presentation of proprietary fund statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. For us, that would be the utility fund, and how major component units are presented, and where and how budgetary comparison variances are presented. It also requires that an explanation of significant budget variances be disclosed. And then finally, GASB 104, disclosure of certain assets, and that just requires that we report certain assets separately in our notes, and specifically that'll refer to like the subscription and leases that we just implemented a couple of years ago. And finally, what they have on their future agenda will be 4 that are sitting out there now. One is subsequent events, revenue and expenditure recognition, infrastructure assets, and then finally, going concern uncertainties and severe financial stress. So, we'll keep you updated on how
Quick
those
question.
will
I
impact
know when we
us.
started Gatsby 87 for the leases, that was an arduous task for just about every organization that I've been involved with. Are the other Gatsby's 101, 102, are they
Several
equally-
of those are either minor changes to the reporting, such as the management and discussion. Some of them are no disclosures that may or may not apply to us. Gatsby 101 with the compensated absences, at first read you thought that was rather minor, but it's a little more detailed, but I don't think that'll be significant. The revenue and expense, at the end of the day, I don't think that'll be a big impact, but they do change the categories and kind of have a model that you flow through to determine what type of category the expense is. So
Thank you.
I don't think they'll be quite as bad as the leases and the subscription, though. And then with our, skip just page in my notes, but with the utility billing, we have transitioned to monthly billing. We've implemented the new rates, and we've separated the billing from the Hampton Road Sanitation District. I think all of that went fairly flawlessly. We haven't had a lot of complaints. I will mention that a lot of our residents like to use automated billing, and you had to re-register with the Hampton Road Sanitation District, and I think there was a little bit of confusion because you had to have your first bill in order to have an account number in order to do that. But I think that got cleared up pretty well. We have noticed an increase in the use of our online auto pay, which I think is a good thing. And we will start looking at a tiered rate system. And primarily, that's to keep us competitive within the region. And then we are rolling out the digital parking system. We're partnering with Passport. Physical decals will be valid until August 31st, and the virtual system will launch this Monday on August 18th. And then we are starting to focus some on delinquent taxes. I have a person in the office that is part-time, and I have dedicated her to looking at lodging and meals. And really, most of our businesses do pay timely, but we are reaching out to non-filers because you are required to file every month, even if you don't have activity for a month. You're also required, if you're closing your business, to do a final filing with us noting that that business is closing. And for the delinquent accounts that we have worked with, typically what we're finding, they came into delinquency usually with some sort of turmoil in the business, typically an employment issue, either not enough staff or the person that was performing that responsibility left, and they're kind of scrambling to figure out what they need to do. So she's had a hands-on approach with that, and we want to develop a communication strategy that may involve economic development, possibly zoning, so that we can reach out to new businesses that may not be familiar with our processes here, and also certainly know that they're aware of who to contact should they end up in a situation where they're not sure how to proceed. And then finally, we have noted an uptick in delinquent personal property starting with COVID. And with that, that's a concern because unlike real estate, we have 20 years to collect real estate. We have 5 years with personal property. So we do have a few tools that we use. One of them is debt set-off. And what that involves is communicating with the state that personal property taxes owed to the locality. And what that does is if there is a income tax return and another creditor doesn't come before us, they will route that return money to us. And sometimes that doesn't, will be a partial payment. We also do DMV stops. We let the DMV know that delinquent taxes are owed. And what that does is when they go to register their vehicle, you can't register it until you prove that you paid your personal property. And that one involves an additional fine on top of our penalty and interest of $25. And that fine just covers what DMV charges us to release the stop. I will be coming back to a future meeting asking council to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Taxing Authority Consulting Services, and they're better known as TAX. Of course, we'll provide more information, but they are a group of attorneys that have a collection agency. What we like about them is they do primarily work with local governments, so they understand these are our residents. They understand the law, so they are diligent in their collection efforts, but they're going to follow the law. We're not going to have to worry about them harassing or making our citizens feel harassed. It doesn't necessarily alleviate finance from responsibility or work, because we have to send files of what's owed as well as receive files back. The way that they make their money is they add on another 20%. That's where they get their fee. And our code currently allows for that. It's a 20% administration fee for delinquent taxes. But what they do bring to the table, where our staff has other duties, they have a staff that is familiar and dedicated to reaching out and making that touch, making sure that, reminding people that they have a payment due, that type thing. And they oftentimes, where we pick up some delinquencies, is people leaving the area, but they owe us for the time that they were here. And they have staff that can do that research and locate. So more information on that in the future. But I've used them in another locality and been very pleased, and have found it an efficient way to make sure that we reach out and are making sure that everybody's paying their fair share.
Well, we look forward to getting that report. It's not uncommon that entities use collection agencies, and so we just want to make sure that we have the right one. So I look forward to hearing more about that.
I think that's very important, that we have the right one. Currently, we're implementing Tyler payments, and that is just a online payment portal. We're doing that because our software vendor is no longer working with the one that we were previously using. That should go on live or become available September 30th, so we'll have more information. Right now, we're proceeding through that implementation. I don't think it'll be a big noticeable impact to our residents, and it will impact the taxes and utility billing. It will not impact Park and Rec yet. We're going to leave them like they are and get this implemented, and then we'll look at whether we're going to make a change with Parks and Rec. We're also recovering now enough from our staff shortages, and we're beginning to move from what felt like a very reactive stance and moving into a proactive stance. So I've got to tell you, that feels really good. One of the first things that we're going to look at as we come out of the audit will be cross-training for key positions, because quite frankly, that's what made our staff turnover so painful. And so we want to make sure that we're better prepared in the future, and that we have backup for the critical positions. We also want to look at some of our ERP modules, and we want to look for tools for efficiency. We think there's some opportunity there that, typically when you implement, you don't implement all the what they call whistles and bells. And frankly, some of them can be very helpful, but not all of them. So, we want to take time to study that, and the ones that we think will help with efficiency, we certainly want to implement those. We also want to review all of our processes and procedures, and any time that we touch a process or procedure, that's going to involve internal controls, because we have to make sure that we maintain proper internal controls. And then finally, we want to make sure everything, all the documentation is there, it's updated, and we have a system in place for review of that documentation, because it's only as good as it is accurate. And those are going to be very important to making sure that in the future, we can recover from any changes much faster. And then lastly, I want to just give a shout out to we had a budget review team that was a group of volunteers, and what they were doing is going through our budget document, making sure that all the numbers were correct, and they added up correctly, looking for any grammar errors, spelling problems, as well as, I don't really understand this, could you explain this better? And they took their job serious, and I really appreciate it. For one thing, the group that's working on budget, we start in October and we're going to May. So by the time we get to May and we're building that final document, we're often see what should be there, not what's actually there. So having some fresh eyes to that really improved the document. It's been submitted to the GFOA, so we'll look forward to getting some feedback in the fall, probably in the October and November timeframe. And moving forward to 27, again, we want to look at some of the systems and tools that are available in our software. Frankly, in the past, we were moving fast, and we only had a couple of people working on budget, and the fear was if we use these and we lose data, we don't have time to go back and get it. And now we're in a better shape that we were willing to move forward and look at some of those tools and integrate those into that budget planning process. And so with that, I will certainly try to answer any questions, or I'm happy to hear comments or suggestions.
Well, thank you for the report. It's no surprise to me that the Finance Department has a lot of work to do. I mean, we see it every day, and appreciate that we've finally gotten fully staffed, which, helps people become more efficient, obviously, as people complete their task in a timely manner and things get done properly and on time. So I think we're in a good situation. Gatsby just confounds me, new regulations all the time, and how much additional work that puts on you all. So thank you for being a good steward of our finances and making sure that we're.
Yeah. And I will have to say, working with them, with the Government Finance Officers Association, they work hand in hand. So they do work with committees from the GFOA to and try to consider the impact on the government.
Okay, good. Mr. Vice Mayor, anything?
Thank you, Ms. Dameron, for the report and for all the work your staff does, and really trying to think ahead now that you're fully staffed and starting to look at ways we could streamline some of the processes, not only to make the job easier, but have better return for the city. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the thorough report. And I just think that, like the Vice Mayor said, what I really appreciate is now that you're not necessarily just, right under the surface scrambling to keep up, that you can really spend this time to be intentional and thinking ahead. And I think that benefits all of us, everyone in this room and in the city itself, when you can take that time to think ahead and have goals and then be accountable to everyone here about meeting those goals and those standards. So thank you.
Yes, I would like to thank you for the overview too. I do have a question about the slide on digital parking.
Okay.
If it's okay to bring
Sure,
that
I think
up?
Mark's going to come up, or somebody's going to come up and talk about parking. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager? Yep.
So we'll be able to review all of that when he comes up.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to echo what my colleagues just said. Thank you so much for the presentation and the overview, and for all the work that you and your team does as well.
Thank you, Barbara. And so we're going to add another staff report. There's been some questions about digital parking and how that's all being implemented and the pros and the cons. And so I've asked Mark to come up and kick off the conversation.
Okay, well, good afternoon, Mayor Pons, members of council. I think what we'll talk about is where we're at, where we're going, kind of how we got here. First and foremost, as you all know, we've been talking about parking for a very, very long time. Monday, the 18th, the new digital parking system or passport is going to be fully implemented, and then we will then begin using that. I would say from the outset of my comments that the big change is we're going from an analog way of doing business to a digital way of doing business. Almost everything that we're doing currently, we can do digitally, and we have plans for that. All of the ways that you can pay in the parking garage are essentially the same, so you can, if you go in, you can use your passport app, you can use the pay station. Neighborhood permits, you're going to be able to go online, first you need to create your account. Once you create your account, you're going to be able to go online, enter your address. If you're 202 Main Street, as an example, you put 202 and there's going to be a drop down, so there's going to be no ambiguity as to what the address is. Then you go in and you buy your permit, and then you can add your vehicles to that, and then you're good to go as far as your digital permit for your neighborhood. That is good for the year. It's still $5. It's good for the year. Should you want guest passes, you can go online in the same portal, purchase your guest passes. The system knows that if you're allowed to have 2 guest passes based on your address, it allows you to use those or purchase those. Again, they're still only $5. If you're only allowed 1, it knows that you're only allowed 1, and then you can move forward with that. I would just say that this is really something that we've been at for quite some time. I think this really sets us up very well. We had talked about a lot of different iterations on the parking program in the city. I think this really sets us up very well, not only for now to replace what we currently do. I think it makes us significantly more efficient in terms of usage of the system, ways in which you can interact with the system, the enforcement mechanisms of the system. But I think probably even more important than that is that it sets us up to iteratively add to the system moving forward in ways that we may not have yet imagined. So that's really kind of my high level. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. If I can't, Sean is here on the enforcement side of things, but we're happy to do that.
I think we all probably have some questions. So I understand that it's essentially the same system, but what's going to be, rather than having a physical sticker on your car or hang tag in your car, you'll be entering your license plate number and that of your guest, should you have them.
Sure.
And then what will happen is, as the streets are patrolled, there's license plate readers, LPRs, on the vehicle that will be able to identify that. They'll match your license plate up with the address and know that you are rightfully parked in front of your house.
Correct.
Yeah, because previously, your parking pass or your guest pass didn't give you permission to park in other neighborhoods with the same color decal.
Correct.
Technically, you were only supposed to use your hang tag, your guest pass, in front of your house or in close proximity.
Sure.
Yeah. So as an LPR drives by and notices there's a plate that isn't registered in the system, they'll know that that car doesn't belong.
Correct.
So that enforcement will take place 24 hours a day?
It's not going to take place 24 hours per day, but I believe it goes into the late evening hours.
Okay.
I don't want to put a time on it. I certainly don't want to speak for Sean. I'll let Sean speak to that.
Yes, sir. I think that's a great question. Our goal is to affect what feels like 24-hour day coverage, but the reality is our staff probably won't be out around the clock as parking ambassadors, so with the license plate reader vehicles. However, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, should a neighbor witness what they feel like is a violation, we have police officers who can come out. They will have the app. They'll be able to verify that the vehicle is or is not appropriately parked, and then take the appropriate enforcement action.
And that's helpful. I mean, I didn't, with that question, I wasn't implying that we should have, a parking ambassador out 24 hours a day in every neighborhood. I mean, that's just financially,
Sure.
reckoning. I'll save some of the questions and let Mr. Vice Mayor ask them and others, and if be, I'll come back.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So we've heard this not only about the decal program, but also with parking in general, with some people are uncomfortable using apps. So how do we is there a way to have a hybrid system where people can still use decals if they're not comfortable using an app?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't mean to cut you off, but unfortunately, there's no way to run a hybrid, because you're going to, essentially what you're going to do is take away the efficiencies that we're gaining on the system. As long as your vehicles are registered, then there's no issue whatsoever. If they're not, then you're probably going to get a citation. But the thought of having a parking ambassador driving around, and they've got a computer that's mounted, and they're just driving around, they get a ding, something dings, stop, look, okay, there's a car that's not parked there, it's taken imagery, it's saying, would you like to write a citation? Yes. Then converse that, or kind of just think about doing that, and then having to go and say, okay, what color is that? Let me look around for that. There's really no mechanism in place to make that happen. If we were to do that, we were going to significantly lose our efficiencies that we're going to gain in this system.
I think one thing, though, that we are doing is, for the next year, if you want a decal or a hang tag, you can get it. And if you are a person who struggles with an app, or you don't have a computer, or maybe you're just not digital friendly, you can come into the office and our staff will help you get registered. You can call us and we'll help walk you through it over the phone.
Absolutely.
So with that, maybe I misunderstood, so people that currently have decals, their information won't be automatically transferred into?
If you have a decal that is, that's currently active, it's going to be in the system up until the end of the month. So whenever it expires, August 31st, I believe. Once that's done, between now and September 1, you need to register. Now, it's a one-time registration. You register for that account, add your vehicles in, and then it's going to recognize you moving forward.
Okay, I might have, like the mayor, I might have some more questions.
Okay, hi, thanks. Okay, I do have a couple questions. So, and thank you for all the work that you have put in. I know that digital parking, it's passion, right? And I can, for you, and I appreciate it, because it's, like you said,
Never been called a
efficiency.
passion to me, but.
Yeah. And moving into the future. But, so I just want to walk through a couple of scenarios. So somebody comes to my house, and, they come in from the county or something, whatever, and I would go on the app, I would enter in I've paid for 2 parking passes, so I would go on the app, enter in their license plate, and that's all I have to do.
Right, it's actually a website, but yes, you're on the website, you enter in the state and plate, and that's it.
Okay, great. And let's say I have 4 people coming over to my house. I have 2 guest passes, and this was something that was brought up earlier in the week. And this happens sometimes. Like, you might have multiple people over at your house, you have a little derby party, something's going on, and so you have people over. What I historically have done is I'll call the non-emergency line and say, I'm going to have, more than 2 cars in front of my house because I'm having friends over. Does this at all change that?
Does not.
At all?
You would still call the police, you just need to give them the plate information, and then they put it in.
Okay, well.
Or
so
just alert them that you're having a party.
That's what I'm saying, right. So
No,
I
to
wouldn't
alert the
actually
staff.
have to give them the
That's
plate
right.
information. So
That process
so
still
this
exists.
doesn't change
No.
the current process at all because right now, if I have several people over, I just call and I say, and here's my address, and I don't give them identifying information on the cars at all. So I just want to be very clear that moving from an analog to a digital system does not change the sort of gathering at one's house called the non-emergency line process.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then, another concern that I've heard is that, I've lived on DeKalb Street ever since I moved to Williamsburg, so I totally get it. So I'm part of this process too. Is that, how do I know, right, if people that are parking on my street are supposed to be parking on my street? And I do understand that concern, but I was just thinking about, a lot of times we know who our neighbor, what cars our neighbors drive. You just kind of get used to seeing the same cars all the time. But if we do see a car that we don't normally see, then I think the chief might have answered my question. We still would just call like we would, because sometimes I may not even go out and look if there's a hang tag or not. But so that process also does not change. If I see a car that honestly I don't normally see in my neighborhood, I know the cars all my neighbors drive, let's face it, and I would still just call and say, I think that there's an issue, it might be, after the parking ambassador hours or something like that. Okay, that's really helpful to know, of sort of a couple things that aren't changing in terms of process in this way. Okay, and then my other question is if you mentioned there's a one-time registration, and that generated a question for me. So you're saying that as a resident of the street that I'm on, in the decal neighborhood I'm on, I register one time on the app.
On the website.
I'm getting confused here.
On
This
the
is where
website.
you're losing me between the app and
The app
the
is
website.
simply a mobile pay. The app right today is a mobile pay device.
Okay.
The app September 1 is a mobile pay device.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Maybe I'm the only person in the room who got that question. But so the mobile pay device is Passport is when I'm parking in a parking lot or I'm in the parking
Correct.
garage. And that is separate and apart from the website I need in order to do the thing
To
on my
manage your
street.
permits, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. That was my question, because you were kind of losing me there on the website versus the app. Okay, for now, I think those are all my questions.
Ms. Ramsey?
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Stacy, for asking some of the similar questions, because I too live on a decal street. And so I'm going to walk through a couple other scenarios. So I currently have an account for the garage.
Okay.
So I understand that come next week, I need to go in, that account will sort of disappear.
Yes, ma'am.
So I go in and create an account, put my car license plates in there for the garage, and does that count as creating my account for my decals?
So
Is there a
that
separate
functionality is changing a little bit. In terms of your account, it's one account for all of your permits. So your neighborhood permits, your guest passes, anything you're doing for permits within the parking garage, it's all under that one account.
And
Okay.
that's actually one of the advantages of the system is in the future, sort of I was trying not to complicate the answer, but to your question earlier, Stacy, is one permit will cover all of that, is where we're trying to go. So like if you've got a permit for residential parking and then you go downtown and park in one of the garages or even in a surface lot eventually, that will all work under that same permit mechanism. That's what we're trying to get to. It's also one of the things that will allow us to do residential discounts for residents versus visitors in those lots and in the surface lots at CW. So this is really hopefully opening up a whole window of opportunity.
So that creates another question for me. So if I park in the garage with my account, and I understand I'll put money into my account similar to Easy Pass, or like the same way, and every time I go in and out of the garage, it'll be $1 or $2 deducted from that account, and is that correct?
That process is changing. Yes, ma'am. That's
Okay.
going to be a permitted process that we can, so we're going to have a resident permit. It's going to cost $10 a month, and that's unlimited parking in the garage. The technology that we need to enable the drive-in, drive-out, and hit your charge for these little $1, $2 type things, they are developing that in conjunction with the City of Toronto. When that's done, hopefully early next year, we will implement that should we decide to. But for now, we're going to shift to a resident permit that, again, one account, multiple permits, however you want to do it, depending upon your situation and your desire, you go in and you purchase that permit. And then as long as you have that city resident permit for the garage, again, just drive in, drive out, all you want for $10 a month.
So if I have that and decide to park in the garage all the time, then I don't really need to worry about accessing the Passport app
You
to
do
park
not.
in P3 or P5 or anything like that.
So
Is that correct?
The garage is still a separate entity
Right.
the way it currently
Right.
is. So that permit that residential permit that you could purchase would give you unlimited access, again, $10 a month for the garage.
Correct.
If you go to what I would call a Colonial Williamsburg lot, then the Passport app is what you would use there. To Drew's point, what we're hoping for in the future is to fully integrate all of this under the same system, which is the direction we're going, that would alleviate any confusion.
But since I typically park in the garage because I find it so easy, then I don't have to worry about the app for the other parking lots, as long as I'm parking in the garage.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when I go online next Monday, I'll be walked through that to create my account.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can put all of the license plates numbers to be under that
Permit.
permit.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And also, you don't have to do it on Monday.
Well, I know.
You've
but
got to
that's
the end of the
when
month, so just.
Through the end of the month. So then, because I have a garage at my house, I don't purchase a street decal, but I do purchase guest passes. And now I have to worry about giving them out and people turning them back in and this and that. So I won't have to worry about that. But when they get there, I'll need them to know their license plate or go back and get it, bring it in, and then I'll go on the website and create a guest pass for them.
Yes, ma'am.
So will it be good for 24 hours,
Currently,
12 hours?
Currently, it's going to expire after 7 days. That's a configurable parameter. However, you can go in as the owner of that guest permit and cancel that to reissue it to another person.
So as long as, if I've issued 2 guest passes for 7 days and someone else comes to visit, they're sort of locked out
Yes, ma'am.
until I cancel one of the first ones?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then as far as enforcement, I see the little passing ambassador cars driving down Griffin on a fairly regular basis. And I assume that what they'll be doing is instead of sort of scouting for the decals and the right colors and things like that, they'll have their little computer on and it'll just automatically record license plates or sort of check against them? I don't understand.
It's going to, so as the parking ambassadors are driving down the street, any hit that they get, meaning someone is parked there that doesn't have the appropriate permit, they're going to get a notification in the vehicle. They can stop, verify that, write the citation electronically, and then put it on the windshield and they're gone.
So the system will be turned on automatically as they're driving
Yes.
down the street?
Yes, ma'am.
And they won't have to worry about stopping and, like someone said, check to be sure it's the right color or whether it expired or things like
The
that?
only reason they would stop is to verify and/or issue a citation.
Okay, all right.
And again, that's using license plate reader technology, which we already have.
Already used.
Right. I knew that we had that because of the garage and how efficiently it works there. I mean, when I go into the garage, I just drive in and park and get out, and I see the long line at the parking machine. So I feel very happy that I have created my parking account. So, thank you. I think that's it.
Sweet.
Well, thank you for the overview and answering all of our questions thus far. I did have a couple more. Just out of curiosity, as we're in this transition process from one system to the next, the first question I have is, will there be some sort of a grace system as residents figure out all of the new changes?
Yes.
How long will that grace period be?
Are we going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we want to put a number on it, but we're going to be pretty lenient in the beginning. But, you know, if you've gotten 9 warnings, we may think that that's probably enough for that vehicle. So that's why I say I don't want to say it's going to be a month or 2 months because, you know, if we give the same car the same warning for 9 days in a row.
Yes. Yes, and I have a follow-up question as well. Will there be, in addition to residents being able to come into the office or call on the phone with any questions online, will there be any other instructions or resources or frequently asked questions that people can refer to for help?
Absolutely. I think once you get to that part of the site to create your account, in my opinion, it's extremely intuitive. There's tooltips and everything along the way to tell you how to do it. It's really a very, dare I say, it's a simple process.
I think
We are going to be sending out a mailer
Oh, okay.
to all the permit streets, letting them know. They should get that notice Monday, maybe Tuesday, depending on the mail. And that will direct them, it'll give them plenty of information, but it'll also direct them to a new website for parking that has all of this, including the links to go to the website and enter your car, check your parking map. We have an interactive parking map so you can see where you're supposed to park and where you're not supposed to park. So hopefully that'll help.
I think that will be extremely helpful, so that sounds great. My last question is just a clarifying question. I guess a couple moments ago, I heard that the citations will be issued electronically, is that correct? And
They'll be written they won't be handwritten, but they will be placed on the vehicle. It'll be paper on the vehicle, as it always has been.
Okay, thank you. That was my last question.
So I have one follow-up question. You commented that there will be a separate website.
Yes.
So will you go to the City of Williamsburg?
Yeah, it's replacing the current parking website, so it'll be in the same place, but it'll be a page that's dedicated on the city's website.
Okay, because even I had difficulty finding the parking under police, thinking that it would be under parking.
Sure.
Okay, good.
So parking wasn't under parking, it was under police?
It was under, if you wanted to register for the garage, it
Gotcha.
was under police.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So, one of the perpetual issues that we hear about hang tags, guest passes, is that, for example, I live in the red district, much further away than one of my neighbors here in the audience who lives on Harrison Avenue, but is in the red district. If I register a guest for my home, but that car is using that guest, can they use that guest pass to park on Harrison Avenue?
The system is tied, those guest passes are tied to your address, so there's some leniency in there, but no, I would think that that's going to severely restrict that.
That's one of the areas where this system improves. You know, under the old system, it was very difficult for us to know which house that was supposed to be attached to and should it be parked there or not parked there. With this system, we will have a geo-fenced radius around the house, and we'll know it's way outside the zone or it's not.
Yeah, because previous guest pass would, the agent would write the address that the guest pass belonged to, and so somebody who was enforcing it would have to look at, okay, it's in the right color, and then try to look behind it to see if it matched the address. And it's very cumbersome. So that eliminates that.
Eliminates
So-
that, yes, sir.
so particularly in the more congested neighborhoods, Burns Lane, Griffin and all those, somebody couldn't use a guest pass too far away from where it was intended.
Correct.
This new system. Thank you.
And this, Mr. Trivett, is me, I think you touched on it, but communication process with an influx of renters coming in, how do we ensure that just when they come to purchase a decal, they get told that now we have a new system?
Yeah, and we've already started that. I mean, there's a person that lives in the community who likes to be number one on the permits. And so he was first at the window already and really went through the process fairly easy. He had questions, but ultimately we got him registered. And I think on the whole, Ms. Dameron can talk to this better than I can, we've really not had a lot of issues at the window so far. Most people have been pretty accepting of this new process and understanding that probably this is going to result in a more efficient enforcement, but also more frequent enforcement.
I have a follow-up question. So I appreciated the mayor's question because that was one of the things I was thinking. So, one thing that also living in the red zone for a while, would have people drive from, say, College Terrace to park on Braxton Court because it's a little closer, right? And so it was kind of hard because they're both in the red zone. So I see that as improvement. My second idea or thought about how this could be an improvement is that over the years, I've seen situations where, one I'm thinking about in particular, where there was a guest pass, but boy, that guest stayed a super long time, actually for like months, as a matter of fact. So it was hard, right, to try to say anything because they had a guest pass and they were in front of the house that they were supposed to be in front of according to the guest pass, but they didn't ever really seem to leave. So would this also help knowing if there is a car that has a guest pass that never seems to not be there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason for that is simply, it's going from analog to digital. Now we have the data. We know how long you've been there. We can tell that this guest pass has been in use for 300 days.
To this
and then-
car?
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So, and I was going to ask the same question in sort of a different way. So you said a guest pass is for 7 days.
Right.
So can the owner of the house renew that guest pass
Yes, ma'am.
for how many times? Or can we put a limit on the number of consecutive times they renew it?
We can put a limit on it. I don't believe we have a limit set right now, but we can certainly discuss that internally and put a limit on it.
Because I had the exact case of, actually, it was one of my tenants, and they gave a guest pass, and they parked outside, on the street just for months at a time. So, okay. So this allows us an enforcement tool that was very difficult to enforce before, I would think.
Almost impossible, I would say.
So, we've obviously been talking about parking enforcements and strategies for fees and reversing, making the garage free, and doing all sorts of things. And a number of years ago, we entertained the notion of implementing, I forget now the name of it, but a smart pass,
Fiber sensors.
And hockey pucks. So this is really an iteration of this process that's been going on for a long time. And so I think what we've found, in my estimation, other than some inconvenience in learning the new system, it's a much more affordable system to implement, and will ultimately be more, offer more benefits to the degree that's what we were aspiring to have early on in this process.
Absolutely. And cheaper by orders of magnitude cheaper.
Yeah.
We were in the millions on the others, so
Yeah.
we're significantly less than that now.
So I think this achieves a lot of our goals. I think just managing guest passes alone, I think, we've all talked about how this process will help manage that. And, you think, related to the number of unrelated people in a home, if you have 5 people in a house, they would get 3 parking passes and 2 guest passes and, done. This can almost help manage that a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So there's collateral benefit to what we're implementing today. And so I think that is one of another example that why this is a good program. So
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I do have one more question. I'm sorry.
well, you're certainly welcome to ask it.
Thank you. And I know you were wrapping up so nicely, and here I come in with one more
Now I
question.
got to start all over.
I'm sorry. But I was, and I think I was too busy thinking of a question, and Drew might have mentioned it earlier about how people would be notified, because thinking about students coming back and renters and landlords, do we have a plan or process for maybe landlords to find out or learn about it as well as returning students?
Yeah, like I said, we're going to do a mailer.
Okay.
I think we're hoping it'll go out today or tomorrow.
All right, sorry if I missed that.
but
I just wanted to make sure.
Mailer will go out and direct you to the website and give you all of that information, so certainly.
Okay, apologies.
And
Well,
one other
thank
thing
you
to note, I think, is that the staff and I certainly have no illusions that this is going to be the perfect scenario, the perfect rollout of a new system. We're going to find things we didn't think of that don't work as well as it used to. And that's just something we'll have to wrestle with and decide if there's a way to fix that with the vendor. So it'll be a journey of 1,000 steps.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that we're at this stage, because I think, parking has been, a perpetual problem. And as the city manager just pointed out, this by no means will be a perfect solution, but it's a step towards a good solution. And so I appreciate that. I think it is important that we get that mailer out and try to help folks along as best we can. And I know city staff is always dedicated to try to meet the needs of our residents where they need it. So look forward to getting this going.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Stacy? Okay, thank you, Mark, and I appreciate staff for allowing me to put that extra item on the agenda. Okay, city manager report.
I'm going to count that one.
Okay. Done.
Nothing.
Nothing from the attorney? Okay. Takes us now to open forum, and I do have a number of speakers' cards. First is Mr. Robert Wilson. State your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
Robert Wilson, 22 The Palisades. I'm here to respond to the presentations made to you this past Monday regarding the new library project. I thought there were a number of misrepresentations and missing information, first of which was the representation of cost. I heard many times the $26 million number being used as the cost of the library. As you know, that's a gross estimate, underestimate of the true cost of this facility. The $26 million is the pre-design construction cost. As is typical in construction, during the design and construction, costs increase as the details of that construction are finalized and the owner implements or requests changes to it. Typically, that represents 10 to 20% of the original cost. If you use just 11.5%, the lower range, then the additional cost would be about $3 million when the project is finalized. Then there's the direct costs on the part of the city. Those are things like the cabling infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, shelving, furniture and equipment, computers and that type of thing, which the city has estimated at $4 million. So that brings the really hard construction cost of the library to $33 million. If you finance that over 10 years, as the city has done its most recent financing, that would generate interest of $7 million. So really the cost is about $40 million for this library. And the debt service on $30 million over 10 years would be $3.7 million annually, or 12%, or 12 cents of the real estate tax rate, an increase of about 19%. Well, someone must have said, well, listen, this is too expensive for us. We can't afford that. So they talked to Davenport and said, how about a 25-year loan? Well, I call that the car salesman approach. You go into to buy a new car, and you can't afford the monthly payments. So the car salesman says, well, spread that over the time you're going to use the car and increase the term. So increasing the term from 10 years to 25 years does generate a smaller debt service, $1.9 million. But it also generates $18 million in interest. So that's $33 million project now becomes $51 million that you're asking taxpayers to pay for and that you will assess taxes on. I think the second major point is what I call the elephant in the room. If I look at it, assume an alternate reality. James City County comes to the city of Williamsburg and says, we would like you to build a 50,000 square foot library facility for our residents and at a cost of about $40 million. And we're not going to contribute to the cost of that. We want you, the city, to pay for the entire cost. They would be laughed out of the room, right? But that's not what reality is. In the real world, we are volunteering to pay $40 million to build a 50,000 square foot library. 75% of the users will be James City County residents. So the question is, why should City of Williamsburg residents pay for a facility where the majority of the people are going to be James City County residents, right? And on top of that, they are building 3.5 miles away a 25,000 square foot library. The question was asked, well, won't that pull people away from the new library? And the director said, no, our experience is the numbers will rise, right? There will be more users now. Well, there can't be more Williamsburg City users, right? We only have 10,000 people, men, women, and children, who are not William Mary students. We only have 8,000 library cards for William Mary residents, right? So the growth isn't going to come from City of Williamsburg residents. It's going to come from James City County residents. And someone pointed out, well, Kingsmill people will still use the downtown library. I'm sure they will, but they're James City County residents, right? Who do we represent? We represent the City of Williamsburg residents, right? And that's who you should be taking into account in terms of the cost of these things. The Washington Regional Line continues to advocate for the full 50,000 square foot library and suggested that a smaller facility would not be possible. Well, that's simply not credible, right? Hire an architect directly, give them your budget, and they will design a facility accordingly. And then you bid it out competitively and get the best price in terms of what you want to end up with. So, I was frankly appreciated some of the questions and requests for more information that the council made. I think, if you get the answers to those, maybe it'll help, I think, allow you to reach a final decision. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Sabrina Fairbanks. State one of your addresses and
Sabrina Fairbanks, property owner 201 Cary Street, which is at one of the decal streets. This card was specific to your later parking presentation. So now I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to Jack Reed, Clark, Aaron Small, everybody who did such a great job on the paving in Walnut Hills. It looks really good, and they've just put in the guardrail on the dangerous S-curve that we have waited for, to age myself, when a Fairbanks new driver almost collided with a Shohan new driver. So it's been a long time, and I'm from the Sierra Nevada mountain area, and it rivals those guardrails. So Good job. And I would like to thank you for your service. I know it's been a long week. You've had some long days and nights. And so here I am to talk to you about something that wasn't even initially on the agenda, and that is this new digital parking system. I'm trying to think about where to begin. Years ago, the citizens didn't know then that our residential streets were not included in the downtown parking study. And I kept getting complaints from my tenants on Cary Street that they had no parking. And so I began my own study that I did for 5 or 6 years, and which I actually submitted to the company who was working on the downtown parking with the results of what I found. And, you know, I tell you, between Jack Tuttle, Chief Slogey, Phil Serra, Carolyn Murphy, I'm gonna leave somebody out like at the Academy Awards, but you know, there was a lot of work done, and this decal system and guest pass system was revamped, and to our knowledge, it's been going pretty well. Citizen input reporting is critical in the downtown residential neighborhoods. We're able just to see, as you've mentioned, why are these cars out there all the time? And are they residents? And I'll tell you, it's a problem. When I first started looking at parking, there were 40 cars, 40, on Cary Street that were non-residents. So it became clear why our tenants didn't have anywhere to park. But with the changes that the then council gave everybody, the renters at least, one parking pass, that helped tremendously. And they changed a lot of the parking things, park where you live ordinances, and it helped me change my lease. And just so that you know, I also worked with Bill Horatio at the college because he was the parking director. I don't know if he still is, but he's told me the city's got to close every loophole and make it really expensive to park there or to violate parking. And he was right. And, you know, at that time, the decal streets were $10 fines. So anyone affiliated with the college would have to get 40 tickets to equal the cost of a college campus decal. So it was no surprise that they were parking there. But as a landlord, I had to change my lease, and I had to define guest. And I'm worried about this, somebody can get a guest pass for 7 days, because I had to define a guest as someone who comes to your apartment when you are home, rather than for the purpose of going to class or school or something like that. And have I ever had to defend that in court? No. But it makes it clear what a guest is. And that is not how the guest passes are often used. They are used for people who are not on a lease to park on our decal streets. And what else do I want to say in my last 40 seconds? I think there's just problems with this, and it's disconcerting to me to hear staff talk about, we've been looking at this a long time, and we've been working on this. And it's disturbing that the residents weren't part of the we, because we could have spoken to many of the problems in it, the consequences that unintended consequences that may come from this, things that maybe staff didn't think about because maybe they don't live on one of those streets. So we could have been part of the process, and to roll out such a significant change without our input or a public hearing, I mean, it's evident from how many questions you have, we have those same questions, and we would have liked to have been part of the process. So I hope you'll delay it, or maybe use it as a supplement to the system that we have now, because in our minds, it's been working pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Mr. Peter Millett. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of council. I'm Peter Millett. I live at 708 Powell Street and I'm here to support the library replacement. I think it's a public good, it's needed, and it's an investment in our future as well as our children's future. The efforts to maintain an attractive appearance for the current library after 53 years shows that you can make a building look good, but functionally, it needs to be replaced. It can't be renovated easily, and certainly not accomplishing what we need to do in order to maintain this very important public asset. We know that libraries serve as a repository of books and other information, but they also serve as a community center, and we need to value that and value the space that's there. And right now, we've done a good job of maintaining it for 53 years, but it needs to be replaced. We need to maintain and expand the services that are available, and that includes taking care of the space that issues that currently exist that make the operation of the library inefficient and also do not meet the needs of public access, such as the ADA requirements. So you can certainly make efforts to improve, like has been done twice now, to renovate, but I think ultimately you're better off making the decision to replace. And I know this from my own experience working with hospitals and hospital replacements. You know, things get out of date. You've got, I know that I was told at one point it would be nice to build a hospital out of Quonset huts that you could just move around. But that's not the way it works, and it doesn't work for a library either. You need to have a space that is functional and meets the requirements of the public that will use it, not only today, but in the future. And I realize that it's an expensive proposition. I'm not going to fund it myself, but I certainly will help fund it through the taxes that I pay. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other speakers cards, but if somebody else would like to come forward, Dr. Granville, welcome.
Granville, 201 Harrison. I wasn't going to speak, but I was carrying with me very positive thoughts about a 2-hour meeting yesterday with Mayor Dent and Stacy, and then I faced a resurfacing job on one of my flat roof parts of my house and came out to $6,600, and I had just done it 2 years ago on another part, and he told me it was twice what it should have been because of current issues. So obviously that was not a good experience, but I share it with you because it's the way it is, it seems. But then I had a 2-hour meeting with Bob Singley, which again was very exciting and very positive. So I just want to make a couple comments based on what's already been said. I think a key phrase was, first of all, I admire what you've done, Andrew, and the staff here in trying to get this thing going, because it seems like the potential is enormous in terms of efficiency, solving problems and cost. And given how it came up out of this situation we had in Indian Springs, probably, with the pressure, you had to implement it quickly. So the rollout's going to be rocky, as everybody admits. But Sabrina made the point, and I'd like to just suggest it because it came out of both of the 2-hour meetings I had. I'd like to suggest that we set up, just like we did with the library for the first time, thank goodness, a time for residents to come in the afternoon and in the evening with this rollout. I have a nervous feeling the lineup in your office is going to be pretty high, especially when the students get here. But then there are people who don't know how to use apps and so forth, and even though I used to do computing on a supercomputer, out at Berkeley in the Defense Department, but it's a little, as you get older, a little scary. So I just like to think, and then we'll learn some things. For example, the issue of renewing the guest pass. Well, if you can renew it, then the question comes, can you just turn it into an extra pass for the whole year, and the same student parks there, so can you only renew it once? And I don't know. I mean, all I'm trying to say is, as your questions, which were excellent, there are more going to come up, and the bottom line, Sabrina's comment is, which came out at our 2-hour meeting in the morning, we need the residents who are very intelligent here to participate, and everything will come along faster and sooner. So I just suggest that happen. The second issue is, it made me very scary. I'm all fired up after the beautiful presentation you made during the months of March and April and May about the debt and the costs and all the things we're doing. And it all sort of balances as long as we don't borrow any more money. And we are actually in 1 year, 2027 or 28, we actually go into that zone where we're going into the area where our AAA standard could be jeopardized. We actually go over the lower bar into the region between the two bars. So the second thing I'd like to see is not only now that we're in this new phase with the library open meetings where people can participate and learn and hear what other people say, especially the professionals like Sandy Towers, who I think is fantastic. But I also think we need a similar kind of presentation on the debt. So if it's true, I don't, this is the first time I ever heard it, that we're going to change our debt service from 4, 5, 6, 7 years to 20 years. I never heard that. Well, I don't know what's the truth is, whatever, and I don't even know if it's right or wrong, but it scares me. I think all of us who are here should be early on asking questions and participating, because all of us are, for the most part, are pretty careful with our personal finances, and that's why the city's pretty careful with its finances and has been for decades before I even moved here during my past 50 years. So I just encourage we also set up open meetings before we make any decisions, before we make any final presentations, to let citizens participate in the discussion. And then we'll all be stronger for it. And I thank each of you for serving and asking excellent questions on Monday, and good questions today too. And all I ask for is more citizen participation early on. Thank you, Doug, for doing all you do. Thank you.
Mr. Dell? Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Dell. I live at 219B Harrison, and I've got to add my comments to the passport business. And I appreciate and understand and sympathize and agree with Stacy on many of the projects or the problems that she brought up with regards to the implementation. And I've got a couple more. What about contractors? I'm doing a lot of work on my house trying to make it really a nice, decent place to live in the city. And I've got contractors in there virtually every day. What do I have to do as far as registering the contractor? If I register on the app and it's in my name, and then the contractors, come in, that's fine. I can see how that would work. But what about, guests? I've got 3 guests in my home right now. Do I have to go in and get the license plate number of every guest that comes to my house and put it on my account? Which I wouldn't mind doing. I don't expect it to, but it's just more that I have to do when I don't see a thing wrong with the system we already have. I've been here for 25 years, and I've had a sticker for my car ever since I got here, and 2 guest passes, and it has worked fine with me and with no problem, and I have never had a problem, with anything. Another thing, how about housekeeping staff? Some of us are lucky enough to be able to have housekeeping staff to come in. Where are they going to park? If they, without a hang tag, do I have to put in their license plate every time? Multiple guests at a dinner party. I do that as well. What about the student parties that they have every once in a while, which we have on our neighborhood, and I have absolutely no problem with, because they always come to me and say, we're going to do this. And I said, fine. As long as you clean up after yourself, you don't tear up the neighborhood, that's fine. And it works out very well. But where are they going to park? Do I have to put their license plate number in every one of my spots? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And then the big question I have is, what is this costing us? What is the development of the program that Mark's doing here? What does it cost? Is it $10,000? Is it $150,000? I know it's not cheap and it's not free. So do we really need it? Is this one of the things that we, would like to have, but do we really need it? The old need versus wants thing, one more time, raises its ugly head here in the city. So another thing that kind of bothered me was, I don't doubt this expense that we're having to go through with the new fire equipment. We got a new hook and ladder truck, or whatever you call the big thing, and another pumper, which we probably need because these are very old. But we're looking at another bill of over $3 million for these two pieces, and it was deferred from a previous budget, as I understand. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it was deferred. And now we're faced with yet another multi-million-dollar expenditure that is probably needed that we have here. And where's the money coming from? And this, what is it? Future bond proceeds to reimburse capital expenditures in the amount of $3,250,000. Because that was, I'm sure it's necessary, but we got to pay the bills. As Mr. Cranbuell just said, it would really help if we had an opportunity to make some public input in some of these decisions before the actions are made to go ahead and implement them, and then we're committed to pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. Anybody else like to come forward? Seeing none, I'll close the open forum and move to unfinished business. And first is the consideration and authorization for the city manager to execute a contract to purchase furniture for the new police building with a combined contract price of $434,561,000.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Well, it's a nice chapter that we're entering as we get nearer the completion of the police building. And in fact, we're about 4 months out from move-in. As of Monday, Henderson has confirmed for us that we are still on track to move in on or about December the 14th. So we are very excited. As we get to this point in the process, we need to start thinking about ordering furniture. So that's why we're here today to ask for your authorization for the city manager to sign the contract for the furniture through Ball office in the amount of $434,561. This is not all of, but the majority of the furniture, and this is the big ticket items for the furniture: the desk, the chairs, the conference tables, the lobby furniture, and that sort of thing. So most of the furniture throughout the building.
Well, thank you. Just to be clear, this money has already been financed and purchased, so this is just
Correct. Yes, sir.
signing the contract to use the money that we're already indebted to, and
I'm
it's not
pleased to say,
new debt.
yes, sir. I'm pleased to say we remain within our budget, and this was budgeted when we first started talking about the project 2 years or so ago. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have no questions.
Thank you. The only question I have is, are we assured from the vendor that they can meet the delivery date? Having been in the business, typically 90 days is sort of a minimum, so we're looking, 120, and they've said they can meet that delivery date?
They can. They have assured us that they will have the furniture here on time. They helped us to design it. They'll have it here on time, they will install it, and they will set it up for us. And so, yeah, we feel very confident that we're going to be able to make that work. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions?
No other
Motions?
comments? So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the purchase agreement with Ball Furniture for the expenditure for the new police station.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to new business, and first is consideration and action regarding the proposed ordinance number 25-10 to increase parking fines. Mr. Barham.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons and members of council. As we're all very aware today, we are getting rid of the new parking management system and migrating to Passport. Within the Passport system, they require consistent fine escalations. So that's the purpose of this ordinance. So this would increase the fines for parking from $10 to $25 for a first offense, from 25 to 50 for a second, and 50 to 75 for a third offense. If those fines are not paid within 14 days, they will then double to $50 for the first offense, $100 for the second offense, and $150 for a third offense. The fifth or subsequent offense, which is also amended by this ordinance, with payments after 14 days increase from $500 to $600 per citation. These fines are calculated on a calendar year basis and begin January 1st of each year. So the staff recommendation is that the City Council adopt ordinance number 25-10.
Thank you, Mr. Barham. I don't really have any question. I do support it. I know that, well, just in commentary, I often hear friends of mine will say, I get a $10 ticket. It's no big deal. And maybe it's not for them. And, I hate to get into a regressive situation, but I think part of enforcement, you have to have a stick. And so by increasing the fines, hopefully we'll encourage people to park properly.
Absolutely.
Mr. Vice
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mark. I don't have any questions. I think we're behind on doing this, so I'm
Yes, sir.
glad to see we're moving it forward. Hopefully we'll move it forward.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Right, I don't have any questions. I'm in complete agreement on this. The only question I had was, when you talk about if a fine remains unpaid, so we send out you get the little sticker on your car, and if it's not paid in 14 days, is another something sent through the mail, or how do we notify?
As the Chief Information Officer for the city, I have no idea, but I can ask Ms. Dameron to see if she can answer that.
Well, it's like if someone doesn't pay for their ticket within 14 days, how do we notify them that the fine has increased?
It'll be in our ordinance, but we typically will send a follow-up information that this has not been paid, it's now delinquent, and has therefore increased.
And I think on the citation, there's probably some notification of
That's right.
fees are due and what happens next and that type of thing.
Okay, I guess I'm not aware of that since I,
You need to get a ticket, Barbara.
Proper park.
yeah, because sometimes you see a car parked in one location, it'll get one ticket, and then it'll get a second ticket and a third ticket, all sometimes in the same day. So just want to be sure that that we're getting our due. And I'm also glad that we're putting up some fees that are comparable to what William and Mary charges. We're not there yet, and I don't think we want to get there, but I think that particularly for those who haven't paid their fines for a second or third violation, that it'll hopefully change some behaviors. Thank you.
I also have no further questions. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, so I move that City Council adopt ordinance 25-10.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to item B, which is consideration and action regarding the authorization to execute a purchase order for the Route 132Y concrete pavement replacement project. Mr. Clark, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Dent, other members of the council. I'm here to ask the City Council to authorize a resolution to execute purchase order for replacement of the exposed aggregate pavement along Route 132, also known as Visitor Center Drive. It is in need of repair. The National Park Service is currently in the process of having all the exposed aggregate concrete pavement being removed from the Colonial Parkway. We have been in conversation with the Park Service as well as their contractor in terms of performing the work on the parkway itself. The National Park Service has an agreement that we may contact the contractor and ask about the additional work, but with the caveat that they will not be able to provide any additional funds based on the original contract. The additional work for the city would be with Wagman Heavy Civil, which is the National Park Service contractor, and it'll be removing the existing concrete aggregate pavement and any curb and gutter, as well as replacing that same aggregate concrete pavement and the curb and gutter along Visitor Center Drive. It is approximately about 314 linear feet from the traffic circle on the parkway to the driveway entrance to the Visitor Center itself. In inclusion with the work will be the stabilization of the subgrade before they pour the new 24-foot wide, 8-inch thick concrete aggregate pavement. Contractor is currently in that same location as we speak and is ready to do the work for the city. There is funding available in the city's FY26 repaving program to cover the cost of the project. The contractor has provided the city with a quote for $200,405.00 for the work. So the Department of Public Works and Utilities is requesting that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a purchase order to Wegman Heavy Civil for the construction services to replace the exposed aggregate concrete pavement on Route 132Y for the lump sum price of $200,405.00. If there are any questions about the information, I would be happy to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Appreciate the presentation. So I'm familiar with where it is and what the product is on there now, and it makes sense to replace it because it is, cracked and
Correct.
needs replacement. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure I followed you. Would the contractors that are doing the work on the parkway be the same contractors that would do this work? We're just going to engage them to do some additional stuff.
Correct. Yeah, we had contacted the Park Service saying, we understand you're doing the work on the parkway itself. Can we contact your contractor, the same person that's doing their work, and again, have a purchase order or ask them to do the same work,
Sure.
just in a different location? But the Parkway Service says, that's fine, we just can't give you the money. So yes, it's the same contractors doing the work for the Parkway for the National Park Service. We'll do that extended work area.
Well, there was probably some efficiency and economy of scale to have those folks, since they're already equipped and manned in the location,
Right.
trying to find a different contractor. So I would imagine this is much more affordable is an operative word, but it's probably cheaper than we would have gotten had we gone out for another bid. So thank you. I appreciate that, and I support this. Mr. Vice
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mr. Clark. No questions, just thank you for, obviously, if it needs to be done, I agree with the mayor. There's some efficiencies that reaching out to the contractor while they're here to get it done makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you reaching out to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I would comment on, it looked like the quote from this company was from back in October. So I think it's good for the city that we had that quote from October and they're sticking to that price.
Correct.
Because we know that paving costs can increase exponentially. So I'm glad that we can tie the two of these together.
Yeah, I was in contact with the project the Wegman Heavy Civil people as well as the Park Service, and just making sure that, are you all still sticking with this number? And that they have advised us that, yes, that is still a valid quote.
Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the information. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Make a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a purchase order to Wegman Heavy Civil for construction services based on the task order provided for the replacement of aggregate pavement on Route 132Y for a lump sum not to exceed $200,405.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, takes us next to item C, consideration and action to purchase a Pierce Enforcer pumper and a Pierce Enforcer aerial tower. Mr. Chief Snyder. First, before you say anything, how many firemen can you fit in a row of seats? I mean, they're pretty well jammed in there, and ladies.
Well, one of the topics today has been about government efficiency, so I think we are doing a good job. And all the available seats that are there, they are stuck together.
They're
So
squeezed, and that's bonding.
certainly glad to have their support with us, and glad that they're here. So good afternoon, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Dent, and City Council members. While I don't have a riveting conversation about parking, I would like to talk about fire trucks, and so that's what we will jump into with that. Ironically, the picture in front of you guys and for the public are the two trucks that we will proposing to replace. That is the Tower 10 in the back with the ladder, and then engine 2042 up front. So the first part of the conversation really is what are we replacing? And so we'll start with engine 2042, and it's not lost on me that I'm proposing this recommendation to a council member who bought these trucks in 2011 and 2012. So we have come full circle now at this point. Engine 2042 is a 2011 Pierce Quantum pumper. It has about 70,000 miles, and for council and for the public, the pumper's main purpose is to provide obviously water on fireground operations. It's our primary suppression piece, and is probably the workhorse of our department outside of the medic units going up and down the road responding to both fire and EMS calls. Just a little bit of the repair and maintenance history. There's lots of different ways that you can talk about when you should replace an apparatus within our profession. Some people talk about once you get to a certain dollar value in terms of the repair and maintenance costs versus what you paid for the unit. Other people use NFPA standards, which we're going to talk about. But just a little snapshot for council and for the public. For this particular unit, we haven't spent a tremendous amount of money since July 1st of 2020. We spent about just under $28,000 for the repair and maintenance costs for that. But if you'll notice, once Chief Phillips came on board as our Deputy Fire Chief in May of 2023, we started creating an out-of-service log about mid-June, if you will, of 2023, where we're really starting to document really the men and women in operations, how often a piece of apparatus was out of service. And I do want to make sure, and Mike Lesniak, who's in the back, I want to make sure that when we talk about it's been out of service for 44% of the time, it's not because it's been just sitting in the fire station and no one's doing anything. Oftentimes we're waiting on parts, so it's certainly no indication about Mike and his staff. It really is an indication of just part supply and the supply chains that keep these trucks running, which we'll talk a little bit as we go into lead times. And so you see a little note there in the bottom, just in comparison, 0665, which we bought in 2019, which is our newest pumper, and then Squad 10, which we bought in 17. Since they've been in service and the city bought them, they've been out of service about 10% of the time. So you can see the disparity in the numbers with newer equipment, their in-service time versus the older equipment, which is the out-of-service time, is certainly an indication of that age disparity. The other apparatus that we're requesting to replace is Tower 10. Tower 10 was a 2012 Pierce Quantum. Currently has about 50,000 miles on it, which is obviously less than the engine because it doesn't go on as many calls as the engine. The purpose of the tower is to provide elevated, stable access for firefighting. It supports forcible entry, search and rescue, ventilations. It does a lot of the specialty stuff on our fire incidents. As you can see, it's almost an inverse on the repair and maintenance history compared to 2042. We spent far more money on this truck, but it's been in service more often than 2042. The biggest challenges we've had with this truck, and Mike can elaborate if you guys would like that from a repair and maintenance standpoint, it's a heavier truck, so we've had significant and somewhat frequent rear end suspension issues, and then we've had some motor for the emission controls with it as well. And so those are largely some of the big pieces of that repair and maintenance history, and then also just normal wear and tear on these trucks in general. And so Mike can elaborate that if council would like more detail on that. So I think it was important to talk about our apparatus replacement plan. I think it's important for council to know and for the public to know what is our general timeline. So when I meet with Mr. Tribbett and we look at the CIP and we look at the vehicle replacement plan, this is kind of our general guideline. This doesn't mean absolute, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're trying to achieve. So those pumpers like 2042, which we're talking about today, we try to replace them about every 15 years. The tower and the ladder is about every 18 to 20. When Vice Mayor Dent replaced the current tower that we have now, it was about 17 years old, so in about the same time frame. The medic units we have started bumping up because, as you guys already know, we've continued to get busier and busier with EMS, and so we really have moved to almost an 8-year replacement cycle for our medic units. And then the operations vehicles such as EMS 10, Battalion 10, which council's already approved, which we've already replaced and is on the road. We're seeing that 8 years is probably the max we're going to get out of them. That may even need to be moved up to 6 years, depending upon as we monitor the wear and tear on those vehicles. And of course, admin staff vehicles like mine, Chief Phillips, our community risk reduction vehicles, those are every 10 to 12 years because we're just not putting the wear and tear on those vehicles like we would our emergency response vehicles. I think it's also important to note, while this is kind of Williamsburg's plan on how we want to manage our fleet and also be responsible with the citizens' money. NFPA 1901, which kind of governs fire apparatus, talks about that their standard, and as council knows and public as well, hopefully, NFPA has about 300 guidelines and best practices for the fire service. Doesn't mean we do them all, but they kind of give us an idea of what we should be doing in terms of best practices in the fire service. And we try to take that as a guiding principle of how we manage particularly our fleet. And so they say after 15 years, a fire apparatus should be moved to a reserve status, and after 20, 25 years, it should be removed from service. But again, that's very situational dependent upon the localities. There's some localities who may only get 8 years out of their frontline fire trucks, depending upon the wear and tear. So I feel like our replacement plan is reasonable and is also in line with the needs that we're currently experiencing. And when you compare it to our partners in York County and James City, it's very close. They're a little bit earlier on their pumpers. They've got a larger fleet. They're able to move vehicles to a reserve capacity where we really don't have that. And so they're doing about 10 to 12 years for their pumpers, and then they're pushing them off into the reserve status. So we're pretty much in line for the most part without having that reserve capacity. So just an idea of kind of what we are looking at for replacement plans as we talk about future apparatus. So the budget, it had been indicated earlier, is that when Mr. Trivet and I sit down and start looking at the fire department's budget, particularly the vehicle replacement plan and the CIP, we had initially worked in 23 to put engine 24 to be replaced in 25's budget, and then the tower in 27. Knowing that the lead times, which we're going to talk about, were starting to get longer in the manufacturing world, we thought that if we could at least program these at that place, they would kind of get here in a reasonable time to kind of meet those replacement guidelines. Well, as we continue to work in 24's budget, we said we're going to push them, each one of those out another fiscal year. So we moved 2042 to FY26. We pushed the tower out to FY28. And then as we started working with the city manager's office in finance with the 26's budget, it was determined that maybe a financing plan would be a better option, which is what we're proposing to city council today. Total price that we're requesting is $3,111,647. That's for both apparatus. That number includes a $457,290 prepayment discount. Because we're going to start paying on what we're proposing to do right and starting in September, we're eligible for that discount, which is obviously a tremendous benefit to the city. The financing plan, the numbers came in when we met with the lender, with our finance team and the city manager's office, came in about just under $60,000, about $59,000 a year under budget from what was already programmed when council approved 26's budget. The one thing that's important to note, I just want to make sure that we're clear, is that the $3,111,647 is only for the trucks. It's not for the equipment on that trucks. We have programmed the loose equipment needs for both of these apparatus in 28's budget. There's no need for us to be buying equipment now for a truck we're now going to get in 2029. And we thought that was a better financial strategy for the city, for us, one, to see what emerging technology happens over the next couple of years, so we're in line to be able to purchase that in the best manner, as opposed to purchasing things now and putting it in a warehouse. Didn't make any sense for us to do that. And it certainly didn't make any sense to do that, to wrap that into the actual borrowing of the money for loose equipment that we were going to program for early on. So, while we're asking for your permission today for the city manager to be able to enter that contract with Atlantic Emergency Solutions, and we're able to get the purchase order by the end of the month, we're not going to see these trucks for 47 months for the aerial and about 49 months for the pumper. So we're talking about 2029 apparatus by the time the city of Williamsburg receives them, just because of the lead times that we're experiencing. And on the right-hand side of your screen, which we've had some conversation with city council members about, why is it so long? And those are some of the reasons there to your right. Disrupted supply chains, the fire manufacturing industry still has not recovered from COVID. A lot of specialty parts. We've already talked about how engine 2042 has several parts that allows it to stay out of service because it just takes us time to get those parts. And so you're continuing to see that, and I don't think there's any correction of that in sight. Obviously, when we had the recession in 2009, 2010, 2011, a lot of localities throughout the country deferred a lot of their capital needs. And so When COVID came, we had this infusion of federal money and ARPA funds. A lot of localities started to utilize some of those things to catch their fleet back up. So there's these huge bulk orders in for fire apparatus. And you compound that by limited manufacturing capacity, because over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions within manufacturing industry. And so we really don't have as much floor space, we don't have as much production as we did previously. Then you go into regulatory changes, particularly on the emissions side, for motor changes in the EPA that continue to add to this complexity of having to build new things. The next EPA standard change is supposed to be in 2027. Not sure if that's going to happen, but all of these things compound for people wanting to go ahead and get large purchases in now. And then the biggest thing is that we've seen across the board, even locally in our own community, is just labor shortages. The fire truck industry relies heavily on the skilled labor. And during COVID, a lot of those folks left and never came back, and a lot of them just retired. So there's a complete skill set that is a big gap that is compounding this situation. So the long lead times are really all of these variables kind of coming together and impacting that. And if you look at other manufacturers, if we didn't go with Pierce and we looked at somebody else, they all have similar lead times. Now, you can shorten that lead time if you get a stock truck or a stock vehicle that doesn't have your specifications that you want. You may be able to drop that down to 24 months to 36 months. But in order for you to get the truck that your team needs and what you've designed, you're going to take 49 and 47 months, which has been pretty consistent across the industry for the last couple of years. The other thing I think is important to note for the public specifically and also for City Council is that right now we're seeing about a 6 to 8% cost escalation every year for these vehicles. So for the pumper, you're looking at an additional $75,000 a year every year that we may delay that decision. For the ladder truck, it's $142,000 every year that we're delaying that decision. So again, all those things compound on why people are making the decisions now and putting in these big orders. So what are we purchasing? Super exciting. I can tell you that I had nothing to do with designing these trucks. It all came from our team in the Williamsburg Fire Department, and I'm super excited to see what they developed. The Pierce Enforcer, as we talked about, that $3,111,000, $1,079,258 is for that pumper. It'll have a 250-gallon tank, which is the water that we carry on the truck, same what we've always carried. But when you look at it compared to 2042, the engine that we're replacing, it's about 9 feet. It's about a foot less tall, about 2 feet shorter, and about 11,500 pounds lighter. And one of the things that we have really made a conscious effort to do in our department is to look on how we can continue to minimize and make smaller fire apparatus for our specific community with our smaller streets and some more difficult access areas. And so our team has done a fantastic job in figuring out what kind of compartment space do we need, what kind of resources do we need, how do we need to get the equipment there in a manner that is efficient and is compact. And likely the same story is true for the Enforcer aerial tower. So of that $3.1 million, $2,032,389 is the price for that truck. Interesting enough, our current ladder truck, Tower 10, is a 95-foot platform. This one here will be a 100-foot platform, so we'll gain 5 feet. The best part about this is it's going to be almost 6.5 feet shorter and about 7,500 pounds lighter. That's going to be significant. The piece of that that's really important is being lighter, as we talked about some of the rear-end suspension issues we've had with the current tower. We think this more compact, smaller truck, lighter truck is going to help alleviate some of the repair and maintenance concerns that we currently have been experiencing with Tower 10. And these, of course, some schematics of what these trucks are going to look like from the CAD drawing. And again, all thanks and all gratitude needs to go to our team. So we had about 6 members of our department who worked about 18 months on designing these trucks, which is obviously off duty while they're on duty, working, measuring compartments, figuring out what equipment we're going to carry, how do we configure these trucks, again, to be as efficient as possible. And so I really want to acknowledge our team. Some of them are actually here today who helped design these trucks, also in conjunction with our city shop and getting some input from them. So kudos to the men and women of the department who put in the work and the effort to design these trucks. And then lastly, I thank Finance, certainly Barbara and Davern for their work and trying to figure out a financial reasonable plan, and of course, Mr. Shriven in the City Manager's office. I do think it's just one thing to note. We did look at other manufacturers for this particular round. We looked at Rosenbauer, which is another manufacturer, to try to spec out, to try to be as a competitive bid as possible. And unfortunately, their trucks came in heavier, larger than what we wanted to do. And in previous design specifications for earlier apparatus, we've also reached out to other vendors who also had the same challenge of meeting the design specifications that we want, and also they would come in a little bit higher. And so what we're planning to do is, with council's approval, this will be bought off of a Houston-Galveston Area Council contract, the HGAC as we call it. We have bought previous apparatus off of that, fire apparatus and medic units off of that, as the most recently in FY24, the council approved the medic unit that was bought off the HGAC contract. So we're very familiar with that. It's a highly competitive contract. It's very flexible to allow you to buy off the contract, but also customize the things that you need off of it. So we're very familiar with that, and obviously all that has been reviewed through procurement and those types of things. So having said all that, I'm happy to answer any questions and do the best that I can to do that.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you all for putting in the work to design a piece of equipment that you all feel is best for us, but moreover, thank you for putting all the equipment to use and making sure that our city and visitors are safe, and not just our city, but our James City County and mutual aid partners. So really do appreciate that. I was contemplating whether I should run for city council again, because I was here when the last ladder truck, so now I want to be here for the next ladder truck. So you might have just sealed the deal for me.
Have you been out of service 44%?
I don't think so, but I'm not keeping track either. It's crazy how expensive they are, and it's crazy to think of the lead time, but that's just what we have to deal with. And so when I look at the price for these two apparatuses and considering the way to pay for them, I think your recommendation and a future one coming up all makes sense. To start paying for it today and to get that buyer's discount, I think is a right move. But it does lead me to a question of what happens if Pierce goes out of business in 5 years and we've made all that payment? In some contracting jobs, there's things called, assurance bonds.
So that's a great question, Mayor Pons. And just like the fire station and police station, we'll have bonds. And so in the event that something like's happened, we will pull those bonds and the city will get reimbursed for whatever we paid. Okay. And then whatever and Barbara may be able to speak from the lender standpoint, but there will be a performance bond to ensure that we get as much collection as we can for the money that we have paid.
Okay. So I think, buying down the debt before we get the apparatus, I think is an appropriate step. When it arrives, will we be getting a 2029 vehicle or a 2025 vehicle?
2029.
Yeah, so
yes, sir.
It'll be labeled that way. Well, we put a lot of calls and service onto these trucks, and so the count is 3,700 calls a year.
We're probably going to hit 5,000 this year.
5,000, which is large compared to most stations, and so these trucks, our equipment is put to use quite heavily, and I think our community depends on that. And so could we get another, we have to get another 4 years out of this, but I don't know that we could get another 6 years out of it, based on the use. And so I think it's timely that we make this move today. And so thank you for bringing this forward and working with staff and again, all of you all to get us to this point. So
thank you.
Retired
Thank you for
Chief
the
Vice Mayor.
presentation, and thanks to everyone on the committee who designed these two pieces of apparatus, and thanks to all of you for what you do every day. And I certainly support trying to provide you with the best possible apparatus and equipment you can to do your job, because it's so important for the community. A couple questions. And the mayor touched on it. Could you talk a little bit, because I know in the past people questioned, well, you have a pumper with 52,000 miles on it. Why are you I mean, it's a different 52,000 miles.
It is, and I think that one of the things that we also have to look at are the engine hours. And so while I didn't put that on there, obviously the engine hours are going to be far more than the actual mileage itself. And we had also talked about the same thing, Vice Mayor Dent, when we asked about the Battalion 10's replacement for the SUV. I think it had 50 or 60,000 miles on it, and I think that where most people would say, I would never replace my personal vehicle for that. Ironically enough, after City Council approved that purchase, we ended up blowing the motor on the Battalion 10, and we obviously had already your approval to buy the new one. Interesting piece of that is, to answer your question, is when they pulled the motor for old Battalion 10, while it only had 60,000 miles on it, it had the wear and tear of 220,000 miles on it because of our urban environment to stopping and going, because to your point, it is different. And so that's just one example most recently of why we can't just rely on mileage itself. So it's also all the mechanical pieces that go along with that that are the wear and tear on those trucks. And again, that's just one caveat to why we don't so much look at the mileage as we do look at the years of service of a vehicle as I'm making these recommendations to the city manager of, I know it's a lot of money, but it's the right thing to do, and I think this is how we sequence it.
And with the delivery time being so far out, you mentioned emerging technology. I kind of compare this to a structure. Is there an opportunity if some emerging technology comes about during this process that essentially you can put in a change order to take advantage of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so, as you well know, by the time that we even get into the queue for this truck to be built, there's going to be changes. And so when our team goes up there, whomever that's going to be, when they sit down for that engineering, they're going to be going over some of those things. What is the latest technology that when we spec'd this truck 2 years ago didn't exist? And then they're going to have to work through that, and we'll work within the confines of the budget to make decisions on what makes sense in terms of a change order, or is it going to be cost neutral? So I think because of the lead time, and by the time we get into the queue and we start getting into the nuts and bolts of building this truck, it's going to give us a really good opportunity to, at that point in time, leverage whatever technology has emerged. Yeah.
And then last question. So 2029's here. What is the plan for surplus apparatus? Can we look for any money to come back to the city from
Absolutely.
surplus apparatus?
So one of the things that Mr. Trivett and I did when we were talking to Atlantic is we got just some ballpark trade-in values for these two trucks. I'm going to share these numbers. They're going to be much lower than what you anticipate. I know when Mr. Trivett and I talked about it, he too was like, I can't believe that. It's low. So we have an option of either trading them in or we can go to the private sector market and see what we can get for it. So we're going to look at those things, obviously in concert with Mr. Trivett and finance to determine what is the best value on either we sell those trucks outright or do we do a trade-in value for those trucks to recoup some money that we've put into them over the years.
Yeah, and with the cost, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, when it's emergency apparatus, it's law enforcement or fire and EMS. When you put that tag on it, the cost skyrockets. And if these companies are starting to merge, they even have more of a corner on the market for the pricing. So it's a lot of money, but it's something that's very much needed.
Well, thank you. I was going to ask about what happens in 2029 with the surplus, but you answered that. I really just want to say thanks to you all for just being here, enjoying this afternoon with City Council. So thank you for being here today. And I was thinking how, yes, my car has wheels and it gets me from point A to point B when I hit a gas pedal, but I feel like that's probably the only similarity between my car and what we're talking about here. This is a completely different animal, and so I respect and appreciate many of the things you talked about as to why now and what are the differences and what measurements do you really look at when you think about what is the proper replacement schedule and time. And I just appreciate everyone thinking ahead and making sure that we can be within safe timeframes and act appropriately to make sure that our equipment is replaced. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to thank you, and I think one of the most surprising things to me was learning that there was a design apparatus team or apparatus design team. I just thought you went in and picked it off the shelf. So that sort of piqued my curiosity about the team, and you shared with me that there's a number of people, and one in particular, I think, who's done this before. And so what are some of the sort of peculiarities or specialness of Williamsburg that we want to ensure are incorporated into the trucks?
Well, I don't know if there's anything specific. I think the thing for us is that just the way that we lay out our trucks and the way that the equipment that we have may be just a little bit different. And so I think that our folks really look at the functionality of the truck, and I'm not saying other localities don't. One of the things that are more important to us as we've kind of gone into the iteration of these smaller trucks is just, lower hose beds in the back so that we can get the hose off easier. If you look at this truck compared to the newest engine, drastic difference in terms of height and how they're laid out, being able to pull hose, the ergonomics of it, and the functionality of it. And I think that as our team has continued to figure out how they use the truck and where are the easiest places to pull stuff off, they've identified some of their own best practices and efficiencies on how to do that. And so I think that just the equipment specifically that we have and just how we use the truck is a little bit different. And one of the challenges with the engines in general is you try to put a lot of equipment on these because they kind of do a little bit of everything. And I think that goes into the complexity of trying to figure how do you put all this equipment on these trucks who have storage space, but you always want more storage space. Just like when you buy a house, you
Right.
always want more storage. No different when you're building a fire truck. I really like to have that walk-in closet, but I can't put it here. Same type thought. So our folks work really, really hard to figure out the mechanics and just the functionality of these trucks, and how we use it is probably a little bit different compared to the other localities, which makes the layout of ours a little bit different.
Well, and I know that sort of minutes to respond is a big factor for the fire department also. So the best practices and how it's all laid out and how quickly you can grab this and that, I'm sure in the long run cuts down to shorter response time too.
Absolutely.
So basically, we're putting in a purchase order to get in a queue.
That's correct.
And as as Mayor Pons asked, it'll be a 2029 vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
But and we'll have the opportunity up until it goes into actual manufacturing to select the equipment, to confirm what we want, kick the tires, and
Absolutely.
virtually and things like that.
Yeah, once we get into the queue and we get to the point where they do the engineering, they do the final engineering specs and all, that'll really when we finalize everything. And so that's why the way that we sequence it with that equipment being in the 28, and then also this is going to be perfect coordination to make sure that we're having the equipment that fits in the right compartments at that point in time as we go into final engineering.
Do you ever order, or is there such a thing as ordering extra parts? Are there standard parts that you could ever keep on
I would
hand?
defer to Mike Lesniak for that.
I see the vice mayor chuckling, so I guess that's.
I don't
sort of-
think,
Wait, if you saw the cost of the parts.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Nothing lasts in storage anyways.
okay. Well, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
That's right. No.
So, thank you very much.
yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you, Chief Snyder, for all of the work that you've placed in just presenting the information to us today. And I want to thank the committee as well for, number one, being here, but also for all the work the past 18 months that you placed in and creating and really designing these new pieces of equipment. I also agree that this is very timely, especially given the lead time, the cost escalation we will see if we wait. Just out of curiosity too, so earlier you mentioned some of the improvements that these two new pieces of equipment have, such as it being shorter and lighter. Just out of curiosity, how will this decrease the out-of-service time?
Well, it's going to decrease the out-of-service time because we won't have to wait on parts. That's going to be the biggest piece. And we know that the tower that we currently have was, when that was built, that whole line, not just our specific, but that year and that type of model, that model has had motor issues because of some emission stuff, and because it's so heavy, we're not the only ones who've experienced some rear end suspension issues with that as well. So I think because the spec is going to be better and the engineering's better, just from a manufacturer standpoint, I think all those are going to come, has some synergy to keep these trucks in service. And again, as we showed earlier in the slide, just that 2019 and 2017 only having a 10% out of service time, time versus these, which is a 27 and 44%. That's indicative of what we should expect as we move forward when these trucks come online.
Wow,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief Snyder.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
And the most unique thing, Ms. Ramsey, is they're white.
Yes,
Oh, really? Oh, I never thought about that, right.
I was going to add that, but you are right, yes. Thank you all.
That's our caller.
So if we sell our fire engines to another place, do they paint them red or
They can, yes, ma'am, they
or
can.
they could paint them blue or whatever color they
They can
wanted?
paint them whatever
but-
color they want. As long as they give us the money that we're requesting for it, they can do whatever they want with it.
Take our lettering off.
That's right. Yes, we will take our lettering off, without a doubt. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments? No? Would somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Atlantic Emergency Solutions for the purchase of a Pierce Enforcer pumper and a Pierce Enforcer aerial tower for a total purchase price of $3,111,647.
Second.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Again, thank you all for everything. All right, takes us now to consideration and action regarding proposed resolution 25-14, establishing an official intent for a future allocation of bond proceeds to reimburse the capital expenditures in the principal amount not to exceed $3,250,000. Ms. Dameron.
Yes, as Chief Snyder explained, these fire trucks are going to be purchased under a lease purchase agreement. It came in under our budget plan. I have to almost say this is in case we get lucky, because I used to work with an investment manager for pension funds, and he'd say, we can't time the market. And sometimes we get lucky, and I'll take luck at any time. This is in case somewhere down the road, the market changes, and it would behoove us to include this in either a bond issue or a refunding. We have to have a reimbursement resolution in place. We may use it, we may not. This doesn't bond us, but it gives us, if the opportunity arises, the option of being able to get a better rate. And so we would ask or recommend that council approve this resolution.
Good, thank you. Yeah, so we could have decided to use cash on hand to pay for these trucks.
We could have.
But I think the value of having money in the bank for emergencies and other needs that may arise is more important, so there's a value to that.
Yeah,
So
the
we're gonna
great
pay
thing
some
about
interest.
this is it got him in that queue, because you see how long it takes to
That's
bill him.
right.
It also gave us that prepayment discount,
Right. So we're,
but it reserved the funds.
that's right.
too.
And, 4.8% interest isn't bad on the lease purchase agreement. And so what we're saying is, if we have the opportunity to refinance that debt, because that's debt, at a cheaper interest rate, this resolution will do that. Why is it important to do it today and not at the time we decide to do it?
Because before we enter this agreement, we need to have that on record so that at a future point, we say we had an official intent to reimburse the payment of this. Without this, we wouldn't be able to do that if the occasion arose.
And by doing this resolution, we're not authorizing the city staff to unilaterally go out to the markets and
no.
borrow the money. This would still require a decision
And
by council.
we'd have to have the public notice, we'd have to come back and ask council for authorization to either do a bond issue or refunding. And, earlier in the year, we had, I don't remember the month, but we came and asked about a refunding opportunity. The opportunity evaporated before we could get to market. And so, it doesn't obligate us, but it does enable us to come back and be able to ask you to issue.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. That's all the questions I had, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron, and thank you for the explanation. In the beginning, personally, for me, I didn't like the arrangement with the financing just because we're paying interest over what we got for a prepaid discount. I can appreciate the mayor's point about having the money available on hand. I don't have a problem with this particular agreement where if the opportunity arises that we can take advantage of it. But more importantly, I like the fact that if we were in a situation where we could pay off that debt, there's no penalty for paying off that debt early. Thank you.
And that's true either way, right? That's true under the current financing, or if we did this as well, we would make sure that any bond would be structured that way, because we may decide at some future date to pay it off.
I don't have any questions. The questions here have been very helpful, so thank you.
Ms. Ramsey?
Thank you for the explanation, and I guess just a clarification, so if we did not approve this agreement, we would not be able to go forward with the purchase of the fire
Well,
apparatus.
the purchase and the ability to do the lease purchase is part of our budget. But if in the future it became advantageous to do a refinance or include it in another financing, we would not be able to do that without this reimbursement resolution.
So this is just sort of having it like on the back burner.
Arrow in your
That's
quiver.
right.
Arrow in the quiver, I like that.
All this really does is give us the total latitude of options.
Okay, thank you.
All my questions have already been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. So to me, it seems like having the arrow in the quiver, having the opportunity to refinance the debt in the future by doing this makes good financial management stewardship. So I'm okay with it. Somebody like to, any other comments? Not, is there a motion?
Yes, so I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-14 to allow the city to be reimbursed by bond proceeds for the purchase of the pumper and platform truck, should it be advantageous to do so.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, next, item E is consideration and action regarding the proposed resolution 25-13, amending the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Ms. Dameron, again.
Human Services was awarded a $187,500 grant from the Virginia Department of Social Services to support low-income families and participants of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, better known as TANF. And the funds will help provide direct stabilization services, which would include housing, shelter, employment services, and training services. And we would recommend that you appropriate these funds to the Public Assistant Fund to enable them to make use of those services in that grant.
Thank you. Well, so I like it. I mean, when we get state grants to help support those that need it, I think it's a worthy endeavor, so thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. No questions.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you, no questions.
No questions. Thank you.
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-13 to appropriate the revenue and expenditures associated with the TANF grant.
Second?
Yeah, Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, item F is consideration and action regarding Resolution 25-15 to approve the city's participation in the proposed direct settlement of an opioid-related claims against Slacker family and directing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement. Ms. Shelton.
So this is more or less the same agreement that has been presented a number of times to City Council with opioid manufacturers, distributors, and retail pharmacy chains that sold opioids in the 2000s. The city's share of this is very small. It equals a few $1,000s. The total settlement is $6.5 billion, and the real value here is that when the localities participate at 100%, the Commonwealth of Virginia gets 100% of their share of these settlement funds. And those are then made available to localities for drug treatment programs, drug courts, law enforcement needs related to use of illegal drugs. And so those funds also then become available. The city has taken advantage of that with the drug docket that just started with our court and participated regionally with James City County and York County to support and fund that docket. So for the city, this is going to equal a few $1,000s. For the state, it will equal a significant amount of money, but only if there's 100% participation. The state has received 100% participation in all of these settlement agreements. So very similar to the other agreements, there's a resolution that City Council needs to approve in order for the city to participate. The city's funds that it receives directly go straight to the finance department after I sign the paperwork. We just got notice last week of something a little bit less than $10,000 from the previous settlement that were distributed to the city. So these will come in those small increments for several years after the execution of the agreement.
Questions? Done it before, it makes sense we do it, continue on the ride. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-15, authorizing participation in the settlement with the Sackler family and further authorizing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to participate in the settlement.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
And I will let council know that we did get notice that there is another settlement that's coming through the process regarding generic distributors. And so you'll be seeing this in September, October.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, I believe we have closed session.
We do. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body per paragraph 29 regarding schools.
Second.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll go into closed session, and when we come back, we'll convene and adjourn at that point. Thank you. Back in open session.
I move to approve the certification of a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia.
Second?
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Exactly 5 o'clock. We're adjourned.